which is safety and trustworthiness. Governance cannot be discussed alone or separately. So ethics and governance has to go together. So that was the logic of curating this session. And I'm so grateful that our Director General encouraged us and supported us throughout this endeavor. Without his support and constant encouragement, this could not have been possible. So it's my proud privilege again to welcome you all, and I invite our Director General, Professor Sharma, to deliver the welcome remarks. Sir, thank you.
Thank you, Amit. I think I encourage you more. There are 11 speakers in 1 hour. So, first of all, thank you for being here for this very important session. And a few words about why we are doing this. When Amit came to me and we were discussing about this AI impact, then we thought about the topic, we discussed about, then we thought that this is the one issue about safe and trusted AI. Nowadays, if you see whether a student or a businessman, across we are using the AI across all the spheres, no doubt. But sometimes we are also not ready to accept that we are using the AI. Sometimes we are preparing our speeches by using the AI. Even then, sometimes we become too ethical to accept this, that okay, we are not using the AI. And even in a research think tank, I meet across a lot of people from universities, and I know that many of the students and even the faculty members, they use AI. They dig out all their report in minutes or 1 hour. Then they spend 5 hours to show that it's not look like AI. So these are the real challenges. Whether we need to use AI across, if we even if the government is saying that okay, we need to encourage AI in the schooling, if that is a thing, then what are the limit, what are the ethics, what are the governance issues are there? That's the important thing. And the way we are using the AI across, whether in the medical field or even education, research, it's really sometimes it's very nice that it's facilitated, but it's also challenging for us as well. Because now if we see ourselves, we are, I think AI know much more about us. Even when we are writing the email, we were a bit cautious, but when we are interacting with the AI, we discuss lot of our personal things. And if someone has your AI login and password, he know you about your personality, what you think, what you have done, how you are thinking about this issue. So this is the one aspect, and the second aspect is that given the fact that we need to use the AI, whether we have the governance structure in place, and if that is in place, whether this governance structure would be inclusive. These are the important things. Like AI need to be like a UPI. It should not be like a nuclear technology only the selected people should have or only the urban elite should have. And that's why we have one center, Dakshin, Voice of Global South. The discussion here, why I wanted to take it to the Global South, because we have the MOU with more than 157 think tank across 90 countries. So whatever you are discussing it, we come out with a report, and the whole purpose is that we wanted that which AI should be inclusive, it need to be trusted, and whatever the governance structure need to be there, it should encourage from grassroots to the urban elite. All should be inclusive. Thank you very much. And I request Mr. Vaishnav, please moderate this session.
Namaskar. Good morning. So Dr. Sachin Sharma has already laid the background why we are having this session, and we are so blessed that we have got a panel which is mix of both the governance and users, and with their experience we would understand both aspects, how it is governed and how what are the challenges in governance, how users find it, and what are the challenges or easiness if I could say, to the users, and then obviously what Dr. Sharma concluded, how not to make it look like AI driven, that's also. So I think we start from the last point first, and I would like to invite my first panelist, Dr. Geeta. Dr. Geeta is Director of National Center for Science Communication and Policy Research, and her organization publishes a lot of scientific journals. So Dr. Geeta, my question to you would be to help us understand. You see, these days, a lot of authors are using AI to write their scientific manuscripts, and even editors are using AI tools to detect how much is the plagiarism, how much is the AI content. So this is, describe us this scenario. How do you see it as a director, NISPER? And in your opinion, how authors, editors, and even publishers should make ethical use of this tool? Please use your mic. Or you can use it.
Good morning, everyone, and firstly, my thanks to the organizers, RIS, for having me here today, and I think on a very, very critical aspect, and as highlighted by Dr. Sachin. So, safe and trusted AI, and I don't need to sell the importance of AI. You see the huge participation and the interest for AI. Like Dr. Vashni talked about, so we are publishing 15 research journals at our institution and also popular science magazines, spanning, from physics, chemistry, biology, intellectual property, traditional knowledge, and so on and so forth. And this is really an acute problem today. So AI is a boon and a bane, like we all talked about it. And so how many of you have uploaded any report which comes to you for analysis into AI? Maybe you can raise your hand. Probably each and every one of us at some point have done it. But do you know you're violating the privacy? That is something which many of us are not aware. Because when a report is coming to you or a manuscript is submitted, it's confidential. That is sometimes we are not aware. I think it's lack of awareness. Because somebody may want to patent and somebody has want to take a copyright. The minute you put it into any AI and upload that document, it becomes a public document because AI is training on those data and it is exposing. So you're breaching confidentiality. So many of us are not aware of these ethical issues. So this is just one example I'm giving. And AI is here to assist us, not replace us. You cannot leave everything to AI. So I will tell you what are the do's and don'ts, what we understand from the publication. And this is not made only by us, it's being followed globally. Each publisher, if you look at it, has different variations of the policy. So if you are publishing a paper or submitting a manuscript, make sure that you know what is the publisher allowing you to do. Because each publishers have their own formats and what can be allowed and what is not allowed. So that awareness is really, really important. And as I said, data privacy is very, very critical. So please ensure that you don't upload things onto those things. And many of us actually, like Professor Sharma said, a quick summary we want or something. And many of you may have heard about hallucinations. I think you all are aware of the hallucinations. So be very, very aware of it. And especially many times it quotes fictional references. You have to doubly verify that. Okay, and this is very, very critical. It may sound very logical because the AI is very smart. It makes it sounds very plausible and logical, but you do not know whether it is actually supported by some reference or by facts. And although we may use AI, one of the most important things is accountability is with the human. So you cannot say that the AI gave this product, so I am not responsible for it. Ultimately, each and every one of us who uses AI, we are liable to any plagiarism or any breach of data privacy rests with the humans. So I think this is another ethical aspect you have to keep in mind. And again, we all know that AI is training on the existing data. And by no means existing data is comprehensive. People from India know, like, clinical trials, when they are done, many times data may not be from Indian populations. And even in India, maybe only some populations are represented. So there's a lot of bias within the data and within the models and the output you're getting. So you cannot take it as it is because there is an inherent bias, and that is something one has to be mindful when you are using AI. But At the same time, not everything is bleak. So I'm not here to say that do not use AI, but use it responsibly. So when I say what is responsible AI, so responsibility means you need to know what tool I'm using, what are its pros and cons, and when to use it and how to use it. I think these are responsible usage is absolutely critical. And as I said, there has to be human oversight for the AI. And if you're using Grammarly or for editing, that's perfectly fine. That nobody questions it. If you're using it for editing, that's fine. But you write a whole paragraph using AI, that is not allowed. And many publishers and you have to be transparent about the usage of AI. If you are using AI, you have to declare that you have used AI and in what context you have used. In fact, some publishers go to the extent that you have to tell what is the prompt you have used and what section you have highlighted. But again, that varies from publisher to publisher. But what is common is that you can use it for editing and of things, but not for entire drafting of a manuscript. You cannot give a prompt and say, write a paper, this is my data. That you can't do. So these are some of the ethical considerations when you're writing a manuscript. And again, coming to images and graphics, especially if it's research data, you may have a figure. You cannot use AI to, embellish it or make it look better. That's again not acceptable. But if you have large amount of data and you have to use AI, then you have to declare it. That's one of the things. And I said confidentiality is of supreme importance. And again, originality, you have to be responsible for whatever you're using the AI. And he talked about editors. Editors, you're right, editors are also using AI because, see, we all want to use AI in a safe way, but that is used for only for detection of plagiarism and so on. Again, editors cannot, when you're doing a peer review of a paper, somebody says a paper and you are a peer reviewer, you just cannot upload that and give the peer review of that from the AI. That is again not acceptable. So these are some of the critical issues when it comes to AI and ethics in publishing. And I think most important is we should not forget that AI, well, like recently we had a workshop on human-centered AI, and the focus was it is for the humans. We are generating AI for the humans, and it should benefit the humans, not replace the humans. So, and if we work together, humans and AI, we can really accomplish a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Geeta. Just one side question. For the commoners who are putting their scientific manuscript for plagiarism or AI content check, sometimes they commit mistake, they leave it on the platform itself, so that anybody who subsequently sees it, it looks like plagiarized. So how to avoid such recurrences, if you could advise to the commoners?
No, you're absolutely right. Many times I was just reading even US Constitution, if you put it in the AI, it says it's already existing and it is 100% AI generated. I think that's one of the challenges one is facing. But I think when it is 100% matching or something, people are aware that there is a copy paste of that. I think that
no,
is
even like you put your manuscript and you want to check it second time,
Yes,
third time,
yes,
then it
yes.
could.
But I think there are now newer editions of softwares which are coming which can
Yeah.
kind of address that. Yeah.
Thank you, Geeta, for such a wonderful remarks and explanations. And I hope we understand that when you are writing, how much it is permissible, and as editor and as reviewer, we need to make very, very responsible use of this tool. Now, let us go to the governance, to the person who is involved in shaping it up in India. So I would like to invite Dr. Murthy, and for all of us, Dr. Murthy was head of the research and development unit of Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, and currently he is Dean of Entrepreneurship in Amity University, Noida. So Dr. Murthy, when we are talking about AI in India, we are talking about fairness, accountability, transparency, safety, and privacy within AI life cycle, particularly ensuring human centricity and compliances within mighty guidelines. So my question to you is, how does government focus on mitigating biases? Even Geeta mentioned about that. In diverse data set, establishing local accountability frameworks and implementing regulatory sandboxes for safe innovation. How best to deploy AI in responsible manners?
So first of all, we need to thank you very much for inviting me for this session. I'm a third generation AI guy. So my PhD thesis is in 1992 to 96 from IIT Delhi. And it is on how to use neural networks for natural language processing. So that's where now today you are getting commercially large language models. That was the first of its kind, the PhD. Okay, fine. Having said that, I was in the Ministry of IT, and the first draft of National AI Mission was also drafted by me. So now, having seen the participants here in the diverse area of academicians and the developers and the users and the people who are deploying these systems, I would like to touch upon a brief overview of what is the framework when you want to take any use case for deployment and how to take care of what are the issues that you need to consider.
Yeah.
That's overall a framework for governance of trusted AI systems while deploying in the system and then for the users, especially for the public use. So when you're talking about responsible AI, it includes safety, transparency, trustworthiness, and accountability. These are the major concerns of any person who is deploying or who is using the system. And when you are talking about the responsible AI, that's what it's a common term for this purpose. Why these things are coming? First of all, we need to understand that any AI algorithm and any AI system does not guarantee any optimal solution. It gives only an expert. Just like I am asking an expert, for example, you are going to a doctor. Whether the doctor is giving his full knowledge on that and then diagnosing that or not, still we are also getting the doubts. And that's why you go to for second opinion, third opinion like this. So here also, when you are using AI system, we should understand that it is a system developed by humans. It may have some inherent errors, or it may be a miscalculations may be there in that. That's what we need to understand that. So that's why these issues will come on the trust issue.
Yeah.
Now, while doing this system, while deploying the systems, broadly I categorize into three categories majorly. One is high risk systems, second one is low risk system, and third one is no risk or medium risk systems. If there are medium risk systems or low risk or no risk systems, that is different. And now the human intervention is required in all the three cases. We should not leave the final decision to the AI systems. So for example, in the high risk systems, human has to have a complete control and command on the systems. Okay. And second, if it is a medium risk system, human should be inside the system. That means before the final delivery to the user, your human has to verify that validity of the solution. And if it is no risk or low risk system, obviously human could be a little bit background. So when there is no risk for the ultimate user, or the deployment of that system will not harm anybody. So that's what we need to consider. Now, while developing all these systems, I consider, even though MIT guidelines talks about 7 sutras, so I consider it is at one more system. That's what Ms. Geeta has addressed that. So ethical purpose, social benefit, accountability, and transparency and explainability, that's very important. And safety and reliability, and open data and fair competition, fair, and privacy, that is more important. And AI and intellectual property is another important thing that we need to add to that 7 sutras, which will come to that when you are talking about academicians who are using it or any commercial purposes. Now, without taking much time, I will talk about how to select an AI system for what purpose and how to deploy it and who will be the user, what all the conditions that you need to take. I take this into 4 steps. The whole framework of AI deployment will be categorized into 4 steps. What is the first step? First step is you need to focus areas. What is the use case that you are going to use it, and who will be the ultimate users, and what is whether that is related to business goal assignment. Just like everybody is using, I will also use it for this system. That does not work here. It is like hammer in the child's this one scenario. So review internal policies, whether this is required or internal policies can change because of AI systems that are coming in. That is one more thing. Risk assessment, design, and you need to do technical and socio-economic feasibility. Whether it is feasible the system or not, and whether you have enough manpower to design such a AI system. So that is the first thing that you have to do it. While considering the design system, all the 12 tenets of the trust need to be taken into account, assuming that the AI system will not give you an optimal solution. So next one is the data. Because for any AI algorithm, data is the most important one.
Yeah.
So the data sourcing and cleansing, and if where how to store the data, so that is one of the important things that you need to consider. Testing and testing for quality and biases. If the data is biased, your results will be skewed. So access rules and compliances, whether you are following all the data security rules, data privacy rules or not, and data audit is also need to be done. Whether the data provided to you is correct or not, or it is just manipulated the data. AI generated data is also will be there. Nowadays it is abundant. So how you are taking that data, whether that is the second step. While considering the second step, you need to take care of that consensual, whether the consensus has been taken from the source that you are taking the data, fair and quality, and privacy and security need to be considered. These are the characters that you in the second step. Third step is algorithm. So what sort of AI algorithm that you want to use it? I think some of the people are talking about the algorithms which were designed 2015, 2016 or 2010 may not be relevant in today's context. Only those algorithms which are coming after 2020 may be a little bit more useful, user-friendly, and may be useful for you. And even some of them may not give you the explainability which is essential. So that we need to consider whether these are required or not. And design the logic flow is very important. Test the data sets thoroughly. Don't just go for a shortcut. And if any algorithm you take, a small data is there, you will get some solution. That is not the end of the story. Because we need to have complete transparency and accountability and the completeness of the total algorithm. That is important. So, and model the whole algorithm, and then output you need to check for biases if there are any. And the more training data is available and the more testing is done, the more robust the final algorithm will be. And the last step is deployment and governance. This is very important for those people who are organizations and government who are deploying these systems for public use. Testing, release into production, thoroughly test it and then release it to production. And manage and monitor, mitigate the risks and model this risks. And monitor the hacking and third-party breaches if there are anything. So most of the data systems today, AI systems, can be easily hacked. So how to take care of that? Get incident response immediately. And you should have a separate incident response team for this AI systems if you are using it, if it is medium risk or high risk systems. And change management is very important. Training of the employment for AI systems is very, very important. And getting the right manpower for this is important. So for doing this, transparency and accountability. For each system, for each case, who will be the accountable, that policy has to be designed while governing in the governance mechanism of the AI systems. And these are the things that you need to find out. But unfortunately, when compared to the classical systems, AI systems requires thorough training of almost every day. Why? Because the data, it depends on the data. So whatever the data that you have collected from that date onwards, whatever the data that is generated will not be accounted. Suppose some of the ChatGPT of 2022 or any OpenAI systems which was trained in 2023 or 25 for example, whatever the latest data, it will not provide you answer. Expecting that answer solution from the OpenAI systems is not a good thing. So that's what we need to teach. That is why there is a continuous development of this is required when compared to any other classical system. So with that I will.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Murthy, for sharing journey or evolution of AI adoption and its governance and how it is progressing and what are the possible checks we should take. And one other thing he said is it should be human centric. And when we talk about human-centric, we have a person, Dr. Titipol Fakhdinavich, who is director of Center for Human Rights in Thailand. And I'll request him, Dr. Titipol, that bridging the gap between rapid technological advancement and protection of fundamental human rights, how would you recommend use of AI for fairness, equity, non-discrimination of the heterogeneous society like Thailand or India?
Thank you for having me today. And firstly, I think what we have shared in common is the issue of privacy and how to use AI and to protect the rights of the people. But perhaps I would start with reflecting how human rights is interpreted. That is the main challenge for the use of AI, because in the context of Thailand, I think it's similar to many other Asian countries, because domestic perception is very different from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And that is one of the very main challenge in Thailand. Back before, actually, in Thailand, we have what we call Personal Data Protection Act, PDPA, of 2019. And before this, one of the main example that I would give you, like for example, when the university was discussing about linking student ID with the bank because to facilitate student payment, and some of the staff didn't actually pay attention to that. I said, that's fine. Why can't we just give them straight away? But when you look at the data, the information of the students containing a certain level of personal information, which many people see is fine because and partly it's a reflection of the societal perception in Thailand as well, because I think many Asian countries have similar perception, like hierarchical structure. The adult tend to have the right and authority, and this also translated into the mechanism of the state as well. When the organization feel that they have authority over students to transfer information, and this is one of the main challenge for the protection of the rights. You know, if this kind of interpretation of the rights is not accepted as universal, like when we talk about the language of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and that is one of the main challenges in Thailand to protect that. So when we talk about this kind of safe and trust AI use, I think it is very important that the mechanism of the state should interpret this strictly, not just in a kind of relaxed form or take authority to authorize everything by themselves. And this is one of the main things that I think we have this challenge. And the other thing that I would also reflect from the problem that we have in Thailand is, now I think you might have heard a lot about the cross-border criminal crimes in Thailand. And we have the big problem with on the both sides with Cambodia and Myanmar. And then the leakage of information, personal information, is very important, that many people are concerned about this. And we also have a problem with deficit trust in public institutions. So how can we actually control and have a kind of mechanism to control the leakage of information? Because a number of cases has been published that the personal information from different ministry in Thailand has been leaked to certain organizations. And when we look at this at the local level, and people are very concerned, and if you look at the implementation of these policies, like how can the government implement the PDPA, and that is a very main challenge. I think it is very important to open up for public scrutiny, but how can we ensure that civil society can get involved, because they tend to take authority in Thailand. So, and many civil society groups in Thailand are trying to ensure that the government would actually have facilitate them or provide channel for civil society to get involved to scrutinize the use of the AI, and how can the collecting process of information be perhaps open for more scrutiny rather than providing authority for the operator to use it directly.
Thank you. I think this is very important, that people across different nationalities and how different even genetic variation is there, and people are looking so diverse, and they are subjected to these rights we should look for. When we are talking about diversity, actually healthcare is very, very important, and in fact currently most of the data sets are trained on Western data sets. So how they affect India or country like India's? So I would like to ask Dr. Roli Mathur, who is head of bioethics unit in Indian Council of Medical Research, what are the ICMR guidelines for bioethics and how we are following?
A very good morning, and thank you for this invitation, RIS. And I'm very happy to be speaking a little bit about ethics, because what we have been seeing is that we talk about responsible AI, and but we somehow are not discussing. I feel, I mean, I have a bias because being a bioethicist, that we need to talk a little bit more about ethics in forums like this. Because what is happening is that artificial intelligence is developing at a breakneck speed, really. The amount of speed of innovation is something that we cannot match. And healthcare is handled by doctors, and AI technology is handled by technologists. So we have to really make sure that they connect with each other, they understand each other, because in the race, there's a pursuit of, there's also commercial interests involved, and there are a lot of, things that are, angles to it. So it's very important that they understand each other's perspectives, talk a little bit more to each other. A tool can only be good, as very rightly pointed out by Dr. Murthy, that the tool can be good if the data is good.
Of course.
So, like, how do you really ensure that the data that is going is robust enough? Is it enough? Is there any oversight? And that is something that is not being talked that much. Development. We are only talking about responsible use, mostly in terms of deployment, after the tool comes for healthcare. But we have to talk about the whole life cycle of the tool. At the beginning, how is it going to be prepared? What is the oversight? And how is it quality controlled and optimal? Because this is not about controlling traffic. This is not an application for our day-to-day other activities. This is talking about human diseases, health, human life, which is probably more important than many of the other things. So therefore, in ICMR guidelines, ICMR came up with this guideline document in 2023. This is the document. I wanted to show it to everybody because there is a document that came out in 2023. And it talks about the whole life cycle. It talks about development. It talks about the importance of validation. It talks about deployment. And it also talks about that after, monitoring, oversight, and translation to make sure that the technology is going to be used for the people. It has given out 10 principles of ethics, which are related to the patient autonomy, for example, or even the data sets are going to be used from people. Now, what kind of autonomy is being respected or not for them? Or while the data is being used, and how much it is going to be used? How is it going to be used for their benefit? The beneficence, non-maleficence, justice, which are the first primary principles, and then talking about inclusivity, privacy and confidentiality, transparency, explainability, accountability, and we have to also talk of liability. If something happens to a patient in the course of use, then how and who is going to be liable? Is it the doctor, or is it the technologist, or how do you really make sure that the humans are not the ones who suffer, and how do you maintain the robustness? So this document has actually laid down the architecture for ethics review of AI development, and where it has suggested some kind of safeguards, and the guardrails have to be slightly higher. And then also it talks about the social impact and inclusion, because we would like it to be a local importance, so that we understand our own cultural diversity and our requirements. Also, the tool is not for the elite few who are in the urban areas, but it has to go to the roots and it has to be in affordable. So all these things have to be seen, as it is developing. And so the guidelines has actually suggested that there has to be an ethics committee that reviews and monitors and has an oversight. But I really want to urge everybody to have a look at the guideline and see how it can be implemented.
Thank you, Dr. Rumi. And in fact, at this point, I would like to also thank her for inviting Nepali bioethics delegation to this meeting. Welcome you all. So we discussed about the technology, its governance, its ethics, and also the commercial interest. But where do they all sit in the legal framework? So I would like to invite Dr. K. Ravi Srinivas, who is adjunct professor, Nalsar, and also associate faculty fellow in the Center for Responsible AI in IIT Madras. So, Dr. Ravi, what are the ethical and professional guidelines for AI adoption in legal frame, and how human in the loop oversight is maintained? What are your views on sovereignty and sovereign AI?
Good morning. I thank RIS for inviting me for this important meeting. Basically, whatever the profession you are in, ethical frameworks, ethical guidelines are always there. AI is not going to substitute them, AI is going to implement them. Particularly when you look at AI in the legal field, you all know that the professional responsibility of lawyers and then judges is very huge, in the sense that it's a question of life and death in many instances. And today's newspaper, you would have noticed that the Supreme Court judges have also highlighted that how people tend to take things very lightly and then begin citing cases that are not there, or imputing judgments which are not there. So fundamentally the problem is very simple. Fundamentally the problem is ethical responsibility cannot be simply wished away or cannot be washed off by using AI. Rather, it adds one more layer of your ethical responsibility in that sense that you have to deal with your professional responsibility much more categorically, much more significant way. For example, if I am a lawyer, if I am filing a petition, or if I am using AI to base my arguments in a court, I cannot simply turn around and say that it's a problem with LLM or it's a problem with the software tool. It is not. Rather, I should ensure that whatever the thing I do, I totally recheck everything, realign everything with my professional integrity and ethics, and then I do it. Then the second problem which we people always think is that AI is the best solution that can take up or that can handle many things efficiently. Yes, efficiently it can do, but the ethical responsibility cannot be delegated, it cannot be wished away. So that is something that cannot be simply ignored. But the real question is, how do we match the ethical responsibility of the professional with the efficiency of the AI? That is where the professional guidelines come in, and every sector is now struggling with it, in the sense that legal profession is also struggling with it. That is why you would find that in many countries there are a lot of updates to the legal ethical professionals guidelines. Courts have come up with that. Courts have clearly mandated that by using AI you are not abdicating your responsibility, rather you are adding to your responsibility. So the challenge here is that how do we responsibly develop ethical guidelines for different professions, including legal professions? How should judges should use AI? How should advocates should use AI? How should clients first think that by telling that, okay, sir, I mean AI will take care of anything is not true. So the responsibility cannot be delegated, accountability cannot be delegated, it is there. But then we are also finding ways and means to overcome that, in the sense that, if you are a trained legal profession, if you are a trained legal professional, you know how ethical issues will arise, what sort of checklisting you need to do, and more importantly, you cannot simply say that my junior did it or it came up just like that because the AI was hallucinating. So we need to figure out ways and means to come to grips with the ethical issues, professional ethical issues in dealing with AI. That is an issue where everyone is struggling, different legal organizations, different courts have come up with specific guidelines, specific in the sense that methodology has to how to overcome some of the hallucinations. How do we understand that citations which are not there have to be rectified and all. So it's a long struggle which all of us know, all of us in any profession will have to deal with. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi. I think it was very clear that although the technology is there, but each profession needs to draw its own boundary line, and legal is also not far from that, and we need to follow that. Now let us take a diversion, go back to the research. You know, India is known as a country of 3 seasons, summer, winter and rainy. But of late, we are experiencing lot of sudden events like cloud burst, landslides, flash floods, lake bursts, those kind of stories. So in such a model, I would like to invite Mr. Saurabh Kapil. He is co-founder and director of a startup called BioSky. So one of the young guy who is in this profession and who is using AI for the modeling. So Saurabh, my question to you is, how does AI model perform during extreme, unprecedented or black swan weather events compared to the historical data we have got? What are the failure modes of the model, and how these failure modes are communicated to the end user like meteorologists, emergency managers, or maybe even farmers?
Firstly, thank you so much for having me here. It's a privilege. And let me first introduce BioSky Space Innovations. We are based out of IIT Delhi Research Park, and we are a space native AI company that is solving for extreme weather events, particularly impacting the power and critical infrastructure sector. Now, a very important question that's asked, that how exactly does AI look into black swan events or extreme weather events? Now, if we look at typical standard AI models, they are built on statistical assumptions that the future would statistically replicate what has happened in the past. So let's say if there's a cyclone event which probably happened 100 years ago, and if our training data set is only for, let's say, 50 years or 70 years, plus we also know that the quality of the data set is also not up to the mark. So of course, when we are looking at phenomena like weather, etc., it's very difficult to predict them with purely just on statistical based models. Now, what's your asked that how exactly are we looking at extreme weather events or the black swan events? Now, the core problem here is that just the statistical models will not work. These models have to be physics constrained. Now, what that essentially means is that if the statistic does not resemble the past trend, but the physics is correct, that in such a particular situation, in a particular phenomena, this is going to be the outcome, the physics takes over. And that's where, when it comes to extreme weather events, physics constrained models have a very high accuracy as compared to just a numerical or a statistical based model. Secondly, now in terms of the failure modes, what is asked here, and I think many other panelists also mentioned about the data hallucination. So AI training is, first of all, of course, there's a lot of data hallucination that happens. In addition to that, what also happens is the quality of data. What we feed into the AI models has to be very, very accurate. Now, if you're looking at the tropical nations, or if you're looking at the global south, we do not have the right set of satellite coverage. We do not have the right set of on-ground sensors. Most of the weather models are also built in mid-latitude countries, of course, largely Western countries. So when we just simply take those models and try to impose them on tropical or global south, that's where these models tend to fail. And that's where the innovation has to happen, where we build on top of those models, we physics constrain the data sets that we have so far, and then we build our own hyper-localized models that are very relevant for the industry as well as any stakeholder that is involved here. So it's really important to have that quality data. And of course, then comes the compute and the lag part. These are very heavy models. So of course, we need real-time intelligence for people on ground, and all the stakeholders that are impacted. So of course that is also something which is being being built. So that's why if you would see so far, we rely on a probabilistic outcome. You would see that there's a 80% chance that this would happen. Nobody so far tells you that 50 mm of rainfall will happen at 12:05 p.m. Right? Most of the models that show you the result right now are purely probabilistic, because the data that we have so far is not really that evolved. So it's really important that we build on top of these existing models which are there, but it has to be very hyper localized. It has to be for the region, and we need to in addition to the statistical based model, we also have to physics constrain them.
Thank you, Saurabh. So I think advice is very clear that we need to work on super localized models also, in addition to the large data set which we have got. But one other thing he raised, and also one other speaker raised, is about hallucination of the data. So I would like to come to Dr. Neetu Rajam, who is from National Law University, and I'll request her, maybe you may have to come here. She is one of the, she joined us little late. So my question to her is, Dr. Neetu, that in case of faulty legal advice or hallucination generated by AI, who bears the liability? The lawyer, the firm, or AI developer?
Hello. Thank you, sir, for asking me this question. And sorry, everybody, I joined a bit late, got stuck in traffic and so on. But to answer your question is not that simple as we think it is. And I would like to start from a quote which was just recently delivered by Justice Nagaratna while dismissing a special leave petition. So she asked this question, that artificial intelligence is different thing, but natural intelligence doing things artificially is something which we cannot condone. Because of artificial intelligence, the lawyers and judges, we have an additional duty and responsibility to see whether it is real or deep fakes which are being produced. So a special leave petition was in fact filed, which is often filed only for question of law, and this was filed with fake citations and with paragraphs from fake cases, and that's when she talked about this. So she has identified, although primarily from a legal background, she has very well identified the need for human oversight into matters, especially when it leads to any kind of legal drafting, legal pleadings are being made, or if there is any communications which are being made by the lawyers to their clients. Now, if you specifically look at the advice which is being given by the lawyer to the clients, one of the things that we can say that is that the clients are obviously, they do not know what the law is all about, forget about the citations or whatever. So they completely have this trust on the person whom they are approaching for the sake of getting the legal advice or getting their the plaint being filed. And therefore, there is a kind of fiduciary relationship that exists between the lawyer and the client, which as per the recent standpoint from the Indian judiciary, it doesn't come under the purview of the Consumer Protection Act, but it will be seen as a contract of service which is being rendered by the lawyer to his client. Now, the question is, under such circumstances, we cannot claim any kind of defective liability from the lawyer if he is giving a fake advice or if he is giving any kind of wrongful advice which is misguiding the client itself. And therefore, as Dr. Srinivas has aptly pointed out, one has to rely on the ethical stance which are taken in the field of law, particularly the Advocates Act and also the ethical guidelines for the lawyers which are present. But the ethical guidelines are also focused on how an advice is particularly given, and it is not focusing on the idea of
technology being used. Same for the matter of IT Act as well, which talks about any kind of interference with the computer technologies as opposed to using AI to give some kind of a hallucinated version in terms of the advice. So in 2023, the last quarter of 2023-24, the American Bar Association has in fact very thoughtfully drafted guideline, which is known as the 5112 opinion. Of course, it has no validity in terms of compliance, but it is just a guideline, which talks about the fact that while using generative AI, so they recognize that generative AI can be used, and it has to be, because that's the future that we are all envisioning, and also with the summit that we have talked so far. And so while using those in the legal profession, it is also important to ensure that the lawyer takes responsibility completely of the legal advice which is being given by examining any kind of advice, by scrutinizing any kind of documents which are being presented before the courts, not to mention any advice which is also being given to the clients. And an interesting fact about this 5112 opinion is also that if you know the practice in US, there is the billing being charged hourly. And so they brought in this guideline that when you are charging hourly rates for your clients, it also means that when you are using AI as a tool, it cuts shots on your timeline. So that means you can do things faster. So what you need to essentially bill is with regard to the scrutinizing of the document. That means you have to give certain input to assess whether the case laws, or whether the citations, or whether the legal paragraphs which are being drafted using the legal tech is right or not. So therefore, by recognizing this, even in the billing of the lawyers' charges, they have recognized the fact that human oversight is essential. Now, if you look at the law firms, because pretty much the practice is no longer solo, and we run law firms which also tend to have these AI-based tools in place, and they also train these lawyers sometimes. So if that is the case, there exists some kind of a vicarious liability on the part of the firm as far as the use of these tools are concerned. Now, with the last point being the AI developers' perspective, whether they have any liability. Prima facie, this is the standpoint which has been taken globally in most prominent jurisdictions with the case laws that have been coming up, that the AI developer is not primarily liable for any kind of hallucinations which are there for the software, the legal tech which is there. But at the same time, unless there is some kind of a follow-through, let's say there is some kind of a adverse event which happens following the launch of a particular kind of software, and it has not been followed up by the AI developer. So they have this this database which OECD has also promoted, which highlights those challenges with regard to particular types of legal tech. And if that is being identified through the common database which is being shared, it is also a responsibility of the AI developer to do the patch which is necessary to, in fact, overcome those challenges. And if at any point they fail to do so, then, of course, liability arises. And this is the standpoint which has also been adopted under the EU Act as well. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Neetu, to say that human oversight is most important, and the person who is doing it is the responsible person for its uses. So coming to the last panelist, last but not the least panelist, she's Nupur Chaudhary, Dr. Nupur Chaudhary. She comes from Center of Study for Law and Governance. So when we are talking about legal governance, I would like to talk about specific amendments which you feel are required for the existing Indian laws to address legal gaps on AI accountability and liability.
Yes, thank you very much for having me here. So, just very briefly, because we have very less time.
Yeah.
So, firstly, we need to understand what can be the possible harms. What do we need to regulate, right? The first thing is that of misrepresentation, which is essentially the data poisoning as it is known. The data is not representative enough, therefore there is misrepresentation. So whatever models that you're making, and when you deploy those models, essentially they will discriminate. So the whole discussion about fairness is about discrimination. And what does discrimination mean? Whether it's what you said, for example, an adverse event, or it can, if you actually deploy AI in very critical sectors, say health, right, employment, all these decisions, it will lead to inaccess, right? Those who could access will not be able to access, right? So that is the kind of harm that we are looking at, right? So we need to therefore then identify sectors like what was mentioned earlier, like you mentioned, high-risk sectors. What are the high-risk sectors, right? So currently the regime that we have essentially does not look at sectors, right? The EU AI Act does, but the Digital Personal Data Protection Act does not actually identify sectors. What it does is that essentially it gives more responsibility to scale of operations. What is called significant data fiduciaries have a higher responsibility, but it's not sector specific. So one aspect is to actually look at critical sectors, identify them, and whether or not the scale of operations is huge. The responsibility should be, the trigger of the responsibility should be in which sectors the AI is being deployed rather than the scale of operations of the deploying entity. So that's one aspect. Now, in terms of the ethical standards, it's fairly clear. You have a duty of care and you have a duty of no harm, right? So one would, if you look at the AI Act, the kind of language it uses is that of a trust, right? So it seems to establish a duty of care. You have something like a data fiduciary, a data principal, but actually there is no explicit provision which actually establishes a duty of care. You have this use of this language, but there is no mention of a duty of care, right? So that is one aspect. The second very important aspect is that for most liability to actually be triggered, right, for harm to be understood, right, you need, it's a black box, right? So what you need in this kind of a regime is mandatory public disclosure of information, or say you were to make a connection, it's something like financial, so data developers or AI deployers might say it's confidential information. If we give it out, we lose, market resource or whatever you want to call it. So one aspect is that you have to look at AI deployers as something like what SEBI does, right? It's financial information is confidential, but you do have oversight about it because you understand that the kind of damage it might happen if there is market collusion, for example. Similarly, given the kind of risk of discrimination, we can have mandatory public information disclosure so that audit can happen, right? Audit cannot happen in a black box scenario, right? So that is something that we need to think about, and these are very specific aspects that we need to move ahead. We've decided as a sovereign entity not to have a larger AI Act, right? But once the deployment takes place, we need to develop standards of care for sectors. That's all there is.
Just 1 minute, I would ask Dr. Murthy, as a person who developed the governance model for AI in the country.
Yeah.
Just 1 minute.
Yeah.
How would you respond?
I will take only 30 seconds.
Okay.
What she has mentioned about while designing the rules of IT rules or IT Act, these sectors was not mentioned, high risk or see, the sectors are not, I will classify as high risk or low risk or medium risk. But the application that you are taking is required to be analyzed whether it is high risk or medium risk or low risk. Like for example, in the healthcare.
Yeah.
Suppose you have pathological tests already done by some pathology lab, and after that there is an AI app where you can feed in all that, you will find out what is the diagnosis preliminary.
Yeah.
So that is only medium risk or even low risk, I can say that.
Yeah.
Because anyway you are going to a doctor to consult for that. So these systems, healthcare but if you are talking about robotic surgery using AI,
Yeah.
then
it's
that may be high risk.
risk.
So the application is high risk,
Yeah.
but not the sector. That is why the sectors are not
Thank
mentioned
you.
in that.
Yeah, thank you, Dr.
That is
Murthy.
the
And I
Thank
would
you.
like to invite DG, Dr. Sachin Sharma, and Dr. Neetu to please join us first for the group photograph. Yeah, please.
And we can give
Okay,
a token of appreciation. Thank you.
Yeah.
I request our
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We have to make it this hall. As a responsible knowledge partner. Thank you everyone. Thank you so much.